How's it going, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Barely There podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at Barely There Pod. Sure to subscribe, review wherever you listen to the podcast. Probably not Google Play because Google Play is shit. I'm joined here with Lucas Fetty. You can follow him on Twitter at LucasFetty46. Of course, as always, I'm Duke Coughlin. You can follow me on Twitter at that pod guy Duke. And Lucas, right before we get in here, I just want to make a note of this because it's very significant, especially in the Chicago sports world that we work in. Longtime Bears beat writer John Mullen passed away the other day. He was fighting pancreatic cancer. This is a guy who had worked, a little bit everywhere in Chicago over decades. You know what I mean? I think it was over 30 years. He worked with the Daily Herald, the Chicago Tribune, NBC Sports Chicago. He ended up passing away at 74 years old. And all you got to do is look on Twitter if you're a Chicago sports fan, and you'll see the outpouring amount of stories, love, and support that John Mullen got. He really left an impact on the Chicago sports world. He's somebody that a lot of people looked up to. And yeah, it's very unfortunate. He left behind a great career.
Yeah, Duke, I think you said it all. I don't need to add too much. Obviously, it's a tough loss for Chicago Bears fans. I'm one that is not too high on a lot of Chicago radio shows, but Mully was one that I did enjoy. So, tragic. Pancreatic cancer is a bitch. I had almost like my second mom passed of pancreatic cancer recently. It's this, it's like the fucking worst of the worst. So, cancer sucks, dude. I think we all know that.
Yeah, cancer is certainly one that is really awful. But anyway, I just wanted to get that off the top. He will be greatly missed and a pioneer in the Chicago sports world. But anyway, moving forward, Lucas,
What are we talking about first, Duke?
It's our favorite time of the year once again. Like my favorite time of the year, the most exciting time of the year of Chicago Bears sports. The time between mini camp and training camp, like literally the best. Geez, where do we even start? The Chicago Bears just announced the training camp schedule, so a lot of people, PTOs, are gonna fly through the roof immediately.
Well,
go ahead.
There is an update to that though, because if you had an issue getting into training camp before, there is no limit to their capacity now, or at least like there's no. I think last year they did some kind of sign up where you had to be in a lottery, and then if they selected you to come for COVID reasons. So I was one that didn't win any of the lottery tickets, and I saw many people going to all 8 sessions or however many they had open to the public. Not to shout out anyone specifically, but I was a little upset about that because I could not get a hold of any tickets. The one day I was able to go to, it was like, yeah, no, everyone's going. So kind of sucks, but nice that's changing. And knock on wood, it looks like we're almost out of whatever pandemic type issues we were in before.
Yeah, and I mean, from what I gathered from it, because last year it was definitely really strict on you had to have a ticket. There was really like they weren't giving out any more than the people they wanted to show up, and even if people didn't show up, it was kind of tough. Whereas this year they're going to give like everyone the opportunity to get there. I'm assuming they'll eventually decline people at the door. It'll like hit a point where if it's getting over capacity, they're not going to be able to take everyone, but it's going to be more or less like a first come first serve type deal.
Is it in Lake Forest or is it or some at Soldier Field? I know they're probably going to have like family day at Soldier Field, which I'll be able to beat everyone fucking there.
Yeah, it's we'll actually be able to walk right over because I'm kind of thinking about going to that myself.
Yeah, no, if there's anything at Soldier Field, you're welcome to stay over and parks because they lock down the neighborhood. Like that neighborhood you came into, they completely lock it down with police. And if you don't have an ID, there's many times where I ran to get like Culver's or something stupid like that before a game, and I was coming back and I got held up because I'm like, dude, I forgot my wallet. Like I use Apple Pay. Like, give me a break, right? Like I don't have my ID on me.
Some of like pregame Culver's just to sit on the bowl for the entire halftime show.
I'll still argue to this day. I lived in California. I've had Whataburger. I've had In-N-Out. Culver's has the best burger out of any fast food joint. And to me, it's not even close. There's a Freddy's too, I think, is a place too that's pretty damn good. It's almost like a less franchised Steak and Shake, I guess you would say, with the smash burgers. That's pretty damn good, and they got like really thin fries. But enough of us being just complete fat fucks.
Geez, where was I gonna go from there?
Well, I actually could start off with something because now that it is the season of fucking nothing to talk about, We had a
Well,
nice tweet.
before this, let me answer your question just so everyone at home knows. It is at House Hall in Lake Forest. It's going to be through July 26th, August 21st. After August 21st, that's when they're going to start kind of cracking down and having the more like private practices or closed practices per se, where they really start driving in the game plan. But anyway, go ahead, Lucas. I just want to make sure that everyone knew that.
Yeah. So, all right. Now there's nothing to talk about, and we have like 3 or 4 quality players on offense. Now we're comparing 2 of those quality players against each other. Something that's kind of been a reoccurring theme in the offseason. I understand the Quinn stuff because if he's not coming to camp and he wants to be on a contender, like we can entertain that. We will later in the show. But like this Montgomery versus Herbert shit is fucking insane. Like, first of all, you're arguing to not re-sign him next year. That's fine. I've been on record saying you can go either way, but from a leadership perspective, I really do think Montgomery would take a team-friendly deal. It wouldn't kill you, and he'd be a good person to have for an extra couple of years while Justin Fields is developing. That being said, this graphic that came out, and I got no gripes with Chicago Football Connection. I actually think they're a pretty decent account. But they put up this graphic. Okay, yards per carry, 3.8 versus 4.2. PFF offensive grade, which I fucking hate PFF. This is clearly a PFF thing.
Very, very anti-PFF podcast, by the way.
Essentially, it's saying Herbert is, it says, essentially, it's saying Herbert, I don't want to list every stat. It's saying Herbert is better in every category, which, yes, he did have more yards per carry, but just look at the differential yards after contact per attempt. 2.83 for Herbert, 2.53 for David Montgomery, which is, it's a pretty significant difference between the two. But when you go and look at Pro Football Reference, 1.9 versus 1.8 in Montgomery's favor. So like, how do you have that much of a discrepancy? And this is like just a disclaimer for all PFF stats. Not only are they've created their own stats, which I think is cool. Like those big throw attempts and stuff like that. Like it's all a really cool idea. And I like them trying to get into more of that advanced statistic stuff, but how the fuck are you off by that much? I mean, we're talking about a full yard after contact for Khalil Herbert is the difference between them and Pro Football Reference. I'm sorry, but I'm always going to defer to Pro Football Reference because they've been keeping stats for longer than I've been alive. And as soon as the internet became popular and sports internet became popular, they uploaded their whole fucking database onto there. So like, I'm going to take their word for it and say they're at 1.9 and 1.8. And if you look at the whole NFL, dude, like Jonathan Taylor and some of the top rushing or running backs and yards after contact were nowhere near, like we're talking, they're maxing out at 3 yards after contact per carry. So to me, it's like, how are these two guys right up there with the tops in the league when they weren't getting the opportunities? And then you look at the stats being skewed. Like the thing that bothers me the most is that yards before contact, David Montgomery's at 1.9, Khalil Herbert's at 2.4. Yards after contact, 1.9 to 1.8. Duke, where's the difference in that 0.4? Well, yards before contact, David Montgomery was hit 0.5 yards before contact more. You know what I mean? So a half a yard before contact more.
Lucas, I respect the argument that you're making, and I respect like how much detail you went into. Everything you said is correct, especially when it comes to the Pro Football Reference. If you're looking to PFF before PFR, when you look up anything regarding a player, you're making a big mistake, and you probably don't know how to actually read into stats outside of what somebody tells you about. What kills me about this entire thing is this is like dating a girl for a year and already getting like the idea of what house you're going to buy down the road. You know what I mean? Before like anything else has even happened. We've only seen Khalil Herbert for 1 year. We've only seen him in limited action. Like I really like Khalil Herbert. There is a chance that Khalil Herbert could end up pushing David Montgomery out if he were to, really play out of his mind this year. But we haven't seen enough from him yet to start having these discussions. Everybody says it's never too early to have a discussion like this. It's way too fucking early to have a discussion like this. David Montgomery has been far more proven in this on this team in this city than Khalil Herbert, and that's just plain and simple. And until we see any sort of giant changing of the guard outside of Khalil Herbert going in with fresh legs, not expected to start, being able to run compared to a guy like David Montgomery, who's really just been an absolute mauler, absolute battler, breaking tackles for the Chicago Bears, regardless of who's blocking in front of him. We can't say definitively that Khalil Herbert's better than him just based on some stats. I'm sorry. That's just not going to play with me. Well, it kind of goes back to when everyone fell in love with Jeremy Langford when Matt Forte got injured, and everyone was like, "Yo, dude, Jeremy Langford's the future." You know what I mean? Like he had this like huge run where he just looked phenomenal, and then we end up getting rid of Matt Forte, and we start with Jeremy Langford, and he doesn't make it out of the season as a starter. Like he didn't even make it on the team the next year following the year he was supposed to take over.
The
So
rise of Jordan Howard, baby, and Jordan
so
Howard was
like
the fourth round pick.
that's the thing that kind of drives me nuts about this time of the year, because we get arguments like this that are just, there's no business having it. You know what I mean? That's like comparing yards per completion with like Drew Brees and Jameis Winston a couple years ago, when Jameis Winston threw like 6 passes compared to Drew Brees' like 300, 400 passes. You know what I mean? It's a stupid comparison. Like, I'm sorry. It's not there for me yet. Khalil Herbert, I've gone on other podcasts that we have done and discussed about how I think he has kind of a Clinton Portis type mold, but like, I'm not ready to sit here and crown him as anything yet other than a guy with a lot of promise. Kind of similar to like Darnell Mooney's second year in the league. Like we couldn't go into Darnell Mooney year 2 and be like, oh, this guy's a bona fide number 1. Now, after 2 years, I feel really comfortable about Darnell Mooney being a number 1, while other people are still kind of, on the fence about that. But regardless, we just have not seen enough. So like when I see arguments like this, I like purposely ignore them, because nothing is going to be found out today. It's not going to be found out tomorrow. We'll know probably about like week 10, week 12 of where the Bears are going to be looking at running back next year, or maybe we won't. And that'll be a good problem to have.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to Rise Dieter, because that was his exact quote tweet. He said Khalil Herbert is the next Jeremy Langford. So I was like, wow, that's funny that you brought that up. Never heard of this kid before.
Did not see that tweet, but good reference.
He quote tweeted it, yeah, and I was like, wow, that's fucking hit the nail on the head there, Duke. But honestly, I just feel like, and if you look into the advanced stats even more, I hate cherry picking stats in general. How many more carries did David Montgomery get with 4th and 1 to go? Like, 4th and 2 to go. Like, you're talking about anytime you watch the game, and I'll preface this with saying I really like Khalil Herbert, and I do think he's a better system fit, but I think Montgomery with his leadership transcends scheme, to be honest. Like, I think there's not that much of a difference between inside zone and outside zone runners, to be honest, in the first place. And I just feel like Montgomery is going to transcend scheme. He's leadership. I mean, we've seen him for years here. We're talking about, he's like, for all the people that say, what does he say? For all the watch the tape crowd, you don't forget to subscribe. And he puts Khalil Herbert's highlight tape that he made in all 22. I'm like, this is not objective. Like, getting the best plays of Khalil Herbert, put them up against the best plays against David Montgomery, and compare the two. You know what I mean? It's just insane to me that
at least it wasn't like at least it wasn't like a 3-second clip of him like throwing like a 2-yard pass like Nick Foles.
I didn't see any pass protection snaps in there. I didn't see any, like, David Montgomery's a far better fucking receiver, and it's not even close in terms of ball skills, route running, pass protection, all of that stuff. Like, he's a 3-down back. Khalil Herbert's just going to get you on 1 and 2. Now, are you going to trust pass rushing responsibilities? Say you want to fast forward this and everything goes the way you want if you're in the trade David Montgomery camp. Who are you going to have run pass pro for you on third downs? Like, who is going to be your third down pass pro back? It's not going to be Khalil Herbert. He showed he wasn't cut from that cloth. Do you want a rookie to try to take over that responsibility? Like, why would you want to take one of your strengths and pick it apart? It just makes no sense. You want to compare fucking our terrible offensive linemen? I'm totally okay with that.
Well, people are so ready to recycle running backs in the first place. And that's what kind of kills me about the trade rumors is, like, if you don't value running backs in the first place, what makes you think that you're ever going to get what you think a David Montgomery is worth? You know what I mean? Like, do you think he's worth like a 5th or 6th round pick? Because I think you're better off just keeping him on the roster at that point. You know what I mean? Like, everyone is so ready to ship out a guy like that at a position that nobody respects, where it's like, dude, I'd rather just get a great year out of this. Make sure Khalil Herbert, like, if we're going to go down that route, make sure Khalil Herbert is that guy before we decide that we're going to get rid of David Montgomery. We don't know Khalil Herbert is that guy. I'm not saying he can't be, like I've said, I'm a big Khalil Herbert guy. I love David Montgomery as well, but like, we have to see that before we can move on, like, from the other guy. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what drives me crazy is everyone's so ready to move on from proven production at the idea of production. You know what I mean?
You know who had that same thought process was Matt Nagy. So that's where your thinking is. Jordan Howard, only Pro Bowler on the offense, only guy that produced. He doesn't fit the scheme, so we're going to go ahead and trade him. I think I'm just letting you know, if that's your line of thinking, you are thinking your thinking is aligned with Matt Nagy. That's exactly what happened.
Well, and I think it's kind of aligned with like guys who play a little too much fucking Madden and think that that's how real life is. Like okay, cool. You can get rid of your fucking, expensive running back because you can draft a guy with similar like physical aspects, but they don't. Yeah, you're going to play with him exactly the same, dude. That's not exactly how it works in the NFL. Like guys process things differently. Like how do we know Khalil Herbert can process, a hole or a window or or pass protection the same way David Montgomery can? We don't know that. Does he fit in Luke Getsy's offense? We don't know that yet either. You know what I mean? Like there's so many questions. Like it's not just plug and play like everybody thinks it is. Khalil Herbert might have like a 78 overall in Madden while Dave Montgomery has an 82, and you're like, oh, okay, I can move on from that and save money. It doesn't always work out that way, and people need to fucking realize that.
Production's hard to come by, dude. And if we haven't seen that enough with the receivers and running game and shit like that, like it's not production. Proven production is not easy to come by, and the Bears need some of it. And one of the only two attributes they have on offense, and Dave Montgomery and Darnell Mooney are the only proven production. And even still, then proof isn't great. 1,000-yard season. Monty had 1,000-yard season, but it's not like we have these. I don't know. It's just way too many question marks going into the season. I think about getting rid of one of our only producers.
I think to summarize up your entire point, Lucas, is production will always be far more enticing than the potential of production.
100%.
That's what people need to get past, because sometimes guys just don't work. That's like the people who fall in love with every fucking pick in the first round of the NFL draft, and you have to like go away from it thinking like half these guys might not be in the NFL in 3 years. You know what I mean? Like
it's actually proven 50% of those guys are going to be considered bust. Maybe not 3 years. They might get a second 1-year deal like a Barkevius Mingo or some shit like that, but that's usually reserved for top 10 guys with elite traits. You know what I mean? If Chris Olave, who's a smaller guy that's not necessarily the fastest guy, his game's built on route running, Garfield, you know what I mean? Like if he has a terrible outing his first 3 years and the Saints drop him, like it's going to be hard for him to get onto another roster. No joke. That's how quick the NFL timeline is. So yeah, proven production is just the way to go. Speaking of proven production, we should probably talk about Robert Quinn, because there's some serious smoke to the rumors now, and I'm getting a little worried about what the Bears can actually get for him. I know we've had this conversation at length, but I'm getting worried about it because he has all the leverage, and every other team has all the leverage if he doesn't want to show up.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't quite know the story, Robert Quinn obviously has not showed up to mandatory camp. That's kind of really driven the narrative that he potentially wants a trade. There have been rumors that he has told the organization he wants to trade. Anytime Matt Eberflus has been asked about it, he's really brought up that's a Ryan Poles thing. That's for the GM to handle. If and when Robert Quinn comes in, then I'll talk to him man to man. So yeah, certainly.
And I mean, Quinn did even say, in his press conference, like he was shocked that Matt got traded, and that's the business side, but he wants to keep playing in Chicago. So that, I mean, he's one of those guys that it's like hard to correlate with the media because he's not a fan of him and he doesn't talk to him too much and doesn't release too much. So I don't know, maybe he is a man of his word. Maybe he does want to be in Chicago, or maybe circumstances have changed.
Yeah, and that could be it. Something could have changed from the time that press conference was recorded to now. You know what I mean? He could have also seen a little bit of the writing on the wall, seen kind of the philosophy that Matt Eberflus is preaching right now, and maybe that's not something that Robert Quinn vibes with. Sometimes that's just how that kind of thing works. And who knows? Ryan Poles could have potentially came to him and been like, hey, if you want to make a list of teams you want to go to, we could probably make something work. And maybe that rubbed him the wrong way. Whereas, when he kind of went out on a limb to say that he would want to stay in Chicago. So there is a lot that could go into play in it. We could be spin zone, tinfoil hat guys at nauseum. But it seems like there's a very, very good chance that Robert Quinn doesn't end up being on this team moving forward, whether that's a Robert Quinn decision or Ryan Poles decision. And while Robert Quinn does have the leverage, I don't think he's a guy who necessarily wants to really kind of play a partial year or potentially sit out a year, especially at this point in his career. I think he's a guy who really wants to go play football, especially after the season he just had. and his value could be decent. There could be a team. That's kind of why you have to watch the first few days of training camp, and that's why like this Robert Quinn situation could play out a little bit longer than most people would probably like. Is Poles could play the waiting game. He could wait for one of these top teams to have a guy go down. You know what I mean? Where a team is really desperate to get that elite pass rusher. Maybe a team's feeling really good coming out of training camp or going into training camp, and they're like, "Listen, we're like one or two pieces away, and this guy's just sitting in Chicago, and he doesn't really want to be there." So there's a lot that could play out here. I think the waiting game would be the best way to play this. I don't think you want to force a trade at this point. If you're Ryan Poles, I don't think you're like blowing anybody's phone up. I think you're getting maybe some feelers out there, but I think you're going to want a team to come to you. And I think a team will come to you after the season that Robert Quinn had last year, especially when it proves that his motor was not an issue on a team that wasn't winning. That's always a plus sign.
And I have to agree on in terms of the wait and see game. I do think that's the best approach. An injury changes his value immensely, right? If he's happy and ends up playing for the Bears for the first 4 weeks and has 5 sacks, that changes things immensely in terms of leverage. But right now, say they know something we don't, and they need to be proactive. They need to be the one actually picking up the phone. I think there are a few targets you can go after. If you look at salary caps going into next year, this is something I discovered. The Bears have the most cap next year, but if you look at their cap in 2025, it's actually absurd because they can get out of the Whitehair, Robert Quinn, and Eddie Jackson contracts, and they already have $250 million. Obviously, that's going to change, and if you don't cut all of them, whatever, sign some guys next year, you're still going to be floating in that $100 million range, and that's even if you have a full offseason next year. So my thought process is eat Quinn's money, prolong it on the contract, and give him up to someone that doesn't have money or or necessarily the best capital. Like, to me, then I think you can go ahead and just try to get a player. So I'm looking at like the New Orleans Saints of the world or the Carolina Panthers. They're going to be in cap hell next year. I think the Saints kind of not as much, but the Panthers, depending on what happens with their GM and if they fire someone, try to come and consult, I think you can easily push Robert Quinn trade there and maybe get like a Pat Eflin. I just feel like if you want to be proactive, you have to find someone that's in a really, really bad shape cap wise, take one of their big cap hits off. And that's why I keep coming back to Carolina, because it's like Robbie Anderson's got a pretty big cap hit. I wouldn't suggest Christian McCaffrey, but if you're willing to take on that hit and then they can release Quinn next year for a pretty reasonable amount of money, and not kill their cap, and then you take Robbie Anderson off their hands too, I think that's the way you can maximize your value. But it's not going to be an easy thing to do. Like, there's only a few select teams that are able to do it. I just personally, at this point in the season, like there's not enough on offensive line, and we kind of got into this in the group chat. But it's actually to the point now where it's frightening. After I saw the amount of cap space they had, I just didn't understand why they didn't sign one true veteran starting offensive lineman. I get if you're trying to get younger, but like J.C. Treader was out there. Laken Tomlinson was out there. Those are guys that are getting like $12 million contracts. That's not going to kill you, and it's going to give you it's not going to kill you in the future for cap space, but it's going to give you immediate protection for your biggest asset in Justin Fields. I'm going to be honest, like, it's not looking good for the offensive line. I'm worried about Tevin Jenkins. I know I said before I wasn't going to worry unless it got to preseason, but when you look at Jalen Johnson, he was on the twos for 2 days, and that's because he missed a week of minicamp. And then now he's back with the ones. Like, Tevin Jenkins has been floating down there, and you have a 5th-round pick from last year and a 5th-round pick from this year, both at your starting spots to end minicamp. And it's like you would have liked to see Tevin Jenkins work himself back in to that starting role, whether it's on the right side. I don't even care if they put him at guard. Just like, to me, it just seems like, I don't know, it's indicating that they have big problems with Tevin Jenkins, and they already have big problems on the interior. I'm just like, at this point, you've got to get something in free agency, whether it's an older veteran to come in and start for a year or whatever it is. Like, I'm worried about the O-line. I know I kind of went from one thing to the other, but it's just concerning.
There's a couple things I kind of want to take out of this, because I brought up a Matt Eberflus quote from earlier, actually before we started recording the show. Before I jump into that, though, first of all, I want to say, like, I think with the Dakota Dozier injury, I think the Bears were higher on him than, say, the entire fan base. I don't think I know any Dakota Dozier guys out there. And hey, if you're out there, hey, plug the chats. Hit me up on Twitter and trash me.
Let us know if you're a
you,
fucking Dakota Dozier guy, please.
yeah, you probably are trying to listen on Google Play too, and you're failing. But I think this is a really good opportunity, and I think this is something they were going to kind of look at anyway. But I could see them bringing in a training camp body, and this is something that we brought up on the last episode. There are some guys out still sitting out there like the Eric Flowers of the world, Eric Fisher. There are some potential fills, not somebody that can go in a training camp and prove what they're worth, and I think that's something that they're kind of waiting on because the markets really haven't heated up for guys like that. You'd think when the entire process started that a guy like Eric Fisher would already be on an NFL roster, especially considering he was a former first or second overall pick. Like he was is kind of a big deal. He won a Super Bowl in Kansas City, I believe, too. That was kind of a name that stuck out to a lot of people. And Eric Flowers is a guy who has really shot up a lot of people's, he's improved his opinion of himself after every single season to fans because he couldn't have started his career on any worse of a trajectory. So I think those are potential guys. Maybe there's people that are kind of slipping my mind. I don't know if JC Tretter's still out there, if he got
he's out there. He's out there.
That's another guy I could see. I could see a guy like Lucas Patrick maybe kind of trying to bark up that tree. If he's not really loving what he's seen from Sam Mustipher next to him. Because if you're an older veteran player in the league, I think you've earned the right to go talk to your GM about hey, what's the plan up here. So I think with the Dakota Dozier injury, I think that really opens that door, completely opens that door.
Which it needed to be open because Dakota Dozier was not the answer.
Well, I think it was going to be open regardless, but I think there's going to be a hair more of urgency here. I guess where I'm at, Lucas, is I'm not ready to really jump off yet with the offensive line until we see what happens in training camp. The Eberflus quote that he said that he brought up the other day really kind of instilled kind of my confidence with where they're thinking. Obviously, Matt Eberflus has been getting the Tevin Jenkins question. He's been getting is this a starting offensive line question? Why are you doing the rotations the way you are? And almost in a little bit of an annoyed manner, he kind of finally answered that, kind of detailing it, why he's doing things the way he is. And basically to kind of encapsulate what he was going for is he wants his number 2 guys to be able to work against number 1s. He wants his number 1 guys to be able to work against anybody on the field. He wants people to be very interchangeable. He wants people to be able to jump on the field and know exactly what they're doing. It's a big readiness type of program. And considering we've never seen what Matt Eberflus has done with a mini camp, this is kind of his first run of it. And he even talked about kind of being the scheduling coach now. It could be a different mentality from what we've seen in the past. A lot of what Matt Nagy did, what we saw in minicamp on the offensive line or at a lot of skill positions, that's who we got. But that could not be that might not be the case moving forward. I don't know if we have a legit wide receiver depth chart either. I don't think we have a complete idea of what we want to do out there as the opposite outside receiver to a guy like Darnell Mooney. Are they as high on Velus Jones as they're saying? Is Velus Jones going to be slotted in at slot, or are they going to try to take him along a little bit slower? There are a lot of questions that we have yet to be answered, and they'll be answered probably within the first week of training camp. I think we'll have a lot better of an idea. I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not a little worried about Tevin Jenkins, because I think everybody should be at this point, because I really like the Jalen Johnson example that you make, with Jalen kind of missing the first day of minicamp, and then he was working with the ones for the most part. But there's been a lot of, a guy like Elijah Hicks has seen time with the ones on defense. You know what I mean? There have been kind of a mix, defensive line. We've seen a whole cluster of different combinations up front. And that's something that I don't think we've talked about enough in the Chicago media as well. So
Dominique Robinson, I believe is his name, the 6th round pick from, it was a wide receiver or whatever and a quarterback. He's been lighting it up in minicamp from everything I've heard, been winning a ton of reps. But that makes me worry, because it's is this 6th round transition pick really that good, or are our tackles dog shit?
Yeah.
That makes me worry. You know what I mean? And I do want to preface it with, I like Braxton Jones in terms of what his trajectory can be. I have no idea how he's going to be as a player. I don't know if he's going to start. I don't know if he's even going to play this year. But just when you look at hey, what's the prototypical left tackle? He kind of fits every bill. He's athletic. He's got stupid size, strength, arm length, all that stuff. It kind of reminds me of a Teron Armstead when he was coming out. and he went really late because he went to a small school or whatever it was. I just kind of feel like I'm optimistic, but I'm not like, hey, I'm happy with the way things are going. I really like Matt Eberflus, though. I will say that, like what you were talking about, and just how he's handled the media. I've watched literally every single training camp. I was playing Madden over the weekend. Watched every single press conference from the inception of them getting hired, as in Poles and Eberflus, through the end of minicamp. And to be honest, man, the thing that I like, you want to talk about culture building. I think Matt Eberflus is actually building the culture. Everything he talked about in his opening press conference is now being regurgitated by the players. Get your track shoes on, competition, hustle, running, all of that shit. Like all of those buzzwords that kind of came out when he was like, we're going to be an effort-based team. It's all you hear the players talking about now, right? Like you even hear them saying those cliches like, put your track shoes on and all that bullshit. So it's a lot different than the boom and the BU shit. It is like true, tangible. Hey, I'm hearing them regurgitate this. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care. Like at the end of the day, when you're a coach, doesn't matter what level you're on. You need everyone to buy in. You need to essentially program your players in a specific way. And I like that they're all kind of in unison and understanding, hey, this is the expectation. This is the standard. It was set. Now we're going to go into training camp like this. I can't tell you how many people actually said, we need to be in shape for training camp, opposed to, because Matt Eberflus made it very clear, hey, training camp isn't for you to get in shape. It's for you to improve as a player. You get in shape before you fucking come to training camp. And you're hearing that from all the players. So that's something I really like. But to be honest, like I can't say I'm loving in the first 6 months or whatever it's been. I can't say I'm loving Ryan Poles' approach. Like I get it. You want to tear things down. You have to at least attempt to protect this asset. And like when it comes to receivers versus offensive line, they signed Pettis, they signed Pringle, they signed Equanimous St. Brown or whoever the fuck it was. One of those receivers that didn't work out in Green Bay. Like they did sign a couple guys. And to me, receiver dropping a pass is nowhere near as critical as Justin Fields taking too many hits. You know what I mean? Like I don't like, you can put filler players like a Pettis or a Goodwin or some of these guys we've seen around a quarterback. And if Justin Fields is the dude we think he is, he's going to elevate their play. You're going to be able to see it. Even if the yards aren't there or the touchdowns aren't there, we're going to know like, yeah, dude, this guy dropped 6 balls, or this guy fucking just could not break out of his route, stuff like that. At the end of the day, dude, health is everything. And like Justin Fields took way too many hits. I know he's a fucking tough kid. We all saw it. We all saw it in his playoff run, his junior year or whatever in college. Like tough as nails, but bones break. And God, that's like the number one thing that we have right now is Justin Fields. If we don't have Justin Fields, there's no faith in this fucking franchise from anyone in the fan base. So it's like I don't understand why you didn't do more to protect that asset. If you knew that you already cleared the books, like the books are cleared for the future, you could put some money in. I'm not saying fucking sit here and pull a Jaguars and absolutely destroy your cap just so you can go all in. You don't need to do that. You know what I mean? Like, but you do. You could have signed a couple players. You could have been a little bit more aggressive in terms of free agent signings on the offensive line.
Well, so I think kind of the biggest thing, while I'm going to give Poles a benefit of the doubt for right now, but I guess kind of before I jump into that, I one thing I like that you said was that you're not happy. Like you're not necessarily freaking out, but you're not happy. Nobody should be happy right now. Like, and by I say this, like, I don't say you shouldn't be content. I'm saying like nobody should be happy because we don't fucking know what this team is yet. Like we don't know enough about Ryan Poles. We don't know enough about Matt Eberflus. Like we can praise them and we can be cool with like things that they do. We can be upset with things that they do. But I do want to remind everyone, like, do not be too far on one side or the other. You know what I mean? Don't be sky is falling. Don't be everything is fucking gravy. I'm going to defend everything the Chicago Bears do. And every time we sign an undrafted free agent, we're going to hype him up with a fucking highlight tape that his roommate made him in college. You know what I mean? So like, I kind of want a little bit of middle ground with a lot of fans. Lucas, I think you are you've always approached that really well. I feel like I have too. Not really getting too high or too low, but I guess the biggest thing is like I have to go back to the idea that like I need to see what we do in training camp. You know what I mean? Like I have to see what this team looks like when it's like, okay, Now we have pads on. We're getting fucking serious about driving in this scheme. We're getting serious about guys who actually want to be on the field and start. Like, I want to see camp battles. Like, I want to see camp battles so fucking bad. I want to see what that looks like for people. I want to see who wants to be here. And I think the number one thing, I'm glad you've kind of really jumped on the future cap idea, because I've kind of been preaching that for a while about, like, we have so much money moving forward, like, not necessarily to spend this year, but like to move forward, we're going to be really well off with cap. And that's like a big reason why I was happy we didn't necessarily go all in on, say, like a wide receiver this offseason. But with that all being said, like, there needs to be a plan. You know what I mean? Like, is this Ryan Poles trying to see what is left over from the Pace era of who's going to be worth a damn to keep moving forward? You know, like, what are training camp cuts going to look like? Because I think that's going to be a big thing we forget. You know, like, a lot of these guys aren't going to be here after the first round of cuts. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be significant, and we're going to see guys who genuinely want to be on the field at that point. Like, it's really easy to listen to quotes from players right now who are looking good in camp. But, like, what is that quote going to sound like when somebody who's been in a training camp before is busting their ass to take your spot? You know what I mean? You know, it's going to be like pressure's either going to create dirt or it's going to create diamonds, you know, and what are you going to be? And I think that's really what I want to get into. This is why I've preached over and over again, and I'm sure everyone's sick of hearing about it, but, like, this is why this is like the least favorite time of the fucking off season, because, like, just not enough is being done to show who's worth a damn. Like, anyone who's played football, it's like those kind of summer camps where, like, oh yeah, everyone looks great without fucking pads. And then, you know, you get to like the third day of training camp and your juniors are over there throwing up who you think are going to be starting on defense because they're getting their ass kicked in pads and they don't quite know how to handle that, you know, at that point. So I just need to see what training camp looks like. That's really where I'm waiting for. And that's going to kind of dictate how positive or how negative I'm feeling about both Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus.
I think my biggest issue, though, is the fact that if you find out your O-line's fucked in training camp, it's too late. Like, yeah, you could still, sure, you can go sign one of those guys, but you're not going to have continuity at the start of the season. Like, it's going to be an issue. To me, like, listen, I've kind of preached, like, yeah, we need a reset. Like, I'm in line with the way you're thinking, but I think things have gotten to the point now where it's like, okay, you're not sure why your car didn't stop, but your brake light was on for 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, maybe you just ran out of brake fluid or whatever. I don't know how fucking cars work, but I just feel like this is something a little bit more foreseeable. You know what I mean? Like, this is more foreseeable. Like I said, it's one thing to not have a great secondary and let up a bunch of points, or it's one thing to have your pass rush not be great and you getting worked in, you know, getting your shit rocked on the run, having receivers dropping balls, not being great at tight end or running back. But the one thing that protects your most valuable asset is there's a question mark at every single spot. Like, I don't care. You know what I mean? Like, Lucas Patrick is the guy I have the most faith in right now. And I've watched Cody Whitehair for a long time. And Cody Whitehair is a better fit in this system. But, like, he had a rough fucking year last year. We are taking a guy that was perennially getting abused and moving. He's been at right guard all time. We have a fucking fifth round left tackle from a small school. And we have a fifth round guy from last year from Missouri that played well, got injured. When he came back from his injury, was getting his shit rocked. We got a second pick that we traded up for. And I know that's not Poles' fault or this regime's fault. We traded up for him. And now it's like, are we going to even be able to fucking use him? You know what I mean? It's like, it's foreseeable. I don't think training camp is going to explain that much about this offensive line that we already know. It can only be more positive because we already know it's the bar is set so fucking low. And that's the problem, dude. Like, at any other position group, I would not care. But offensive line, I'm not a fan.
See, if I can flip that and defend it just a hair, if we're going to go to the Ryan Poles situation, this should be Ryan Poles' specialty. So, like, if he's dipping with the undrafted guys or the late round guys, or, you know, getting the fucking Dakota Doziers of the world when nobody else in the NFL is really seeing it, like, maybe he sees something with that. Because, like, if you look at Kansas City and kind of like the influx of random offensive linemen they've had in the past few years, because they haven't really paid a premium to protect a guy in Patrick Mahomes who they basically handed $500 million to. You know what I mean? Like,
But after
maybe
that fucking Super Bowl, they traded for what's it called? I know they got rid of their tackles, but they traded for Orlando Brown and they drafted a fucking guy in the first round, I think. Like,
that could be something that could be on the horizon moving forward. You know, we don't quite know that yet.
but that's what I'm saying. We don't know that, but what if fucking Justin Fields' leg explodes before then?
Well, that's fine. Like, well, that's not fine. But like,
I was gonna
what I'm
say,
saying is like we have to at least see what it looks like on the field. Like we just don't know enough. You know what I mean? Like offensive linemen, like they kind of do come out of nowhere in a lot of the aspects. Like you can use a first round pick to trade for somebody that has looked good in another system. And, you know, maybe he comes to your system and he doesn't look quite the same. You know, there's not necessarily a lot of those like Trent Williams guys just kind of sitting out there. I mean, Trent Williams was sitting out there last year, but we all know how that fucking panned out. So like that's the only reason like I'm gonna keep driving this point home, Lucas. You're gonna hate me for it, but like I want to see what training camp looks like. I want to see what training camp can do because
don't
like
want to see
Ryan,
it
this should be Ryan Poles' specialty. Like if this was Madden, like to anyone who plays Madden and thinks they know ball, like this. I'm gonna come down to your level here for a fucking quick second. If you're going to look at the strengths of your GM, it's going to be offensive linemen. Like Ryan Poles, that would be a number one, probably even number two with like fucking like running like run block vision, something that means nothing in Madden anyway. But like I hate that I'm defending him this much because I hate defending anyone before I see what they do. But like I'm trying to get behind the idea that he has an idea of what he's doing here. Like this should be his specialty. This should be his strong suit. So like with the way it has gone, I do still want to see a camp body. And like I said earlier, I think that's something that we already have in the works. I think we're probably paying attention to some of these guys and like the workout programs that some of these guys are doing to kind of keep an eye on things if things were to go wrong. But I really have to think that fucking Ryan Poles did his due diligence to kind of build the offensive lineman that we're going to get forward. And you know what? If it doesn't pan out and fucking Justin Fields starts getting his fucking ass reamed, Ryan Poles is going to be the first person I'm going to because you're right. He is the one that kind of fucking built the roster the way it is right now. But we have to kind of see how this works. We need to see how it works in Luke Getsy's system. You know, another thing with like even comparing our offense to Green Bay kind of had an influx of different types of guys moving in and out of their offensive line, and they kind of have made it work as well. Like,
but they draft offensive linemen early and often, dude.
They would do. I don't know about early, and a lot of the early guys don't even usually pan out.
Second round picks, like I mean, Elton Jenkins was a second round pick, wasn't he?
I think Elgin might have been a little bit later. I can look that up real quick.
But either way, like to me, it's
like, dude, they still looked like a competent offensive line when David Bakhtiari, who's the best left tackle in football, was out. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, I understand. I understand that, and I've preached that this system will make it easier for offensive linemen. Like, it's not going to be hard on them. Ensure they could run the ball a lot and really only put them in play pass, shit like that. Like, I know, I understand scheme can do something, but like. The fact that I saw that much money on the books, if you really look at it, because I don't think Quinn, Whitehair, and Eddie Jackson will be here by 2025, the start of that season. Justin Fields will be the highest paid player on the team as of now, right? Like they're going to make some signings next year, whatever. But it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like you could have given someone a 4-year contract with the first 3 years fully guaranteed and been able to get out of that fucking contract by 2026. And not destroy anything. Like, no, like I get it. Like every dollar matters and whatever, but I have a feeling we're going to see guys like Eric Fisher and fucking, you know, your boy Flowers and some of those guys. Like we're going to see him sign for like $2.5 million for a team that's not even a contender. And then then what is the excuse? What is the thought process? Because to me, it's like, every position was picked over other than running back really on the Chicago Bears roster. And it's like you address your secondary, which I get it, value. I like both of those picks, but like you addressed everything but the most important unit that's going to, and to me, like, I hate to be that guy, but to me, it's an indicator, like they're still wait and see on Fields too. I'm sorry. Like if you really thought Fields was that guy, maybe you would have thought, hey, okay, like, we don't have to bust our nut right now and we don't have to get a wide receiver and a left tackle and all this shit, but like you would have at least made a move or two. I don't know. You know, it just doesn't make a ton of sense to me. And I like their strategy too. When they, you know, you weren't able to get an elite lineman, you traded down, you got a bunch in the fucking late rounds. Like you're hoping one or two of those guys pans out. Maybe you get a little bit more depth. So I do like that strategy, but it's just, to me, when you have that much money on the books in the future and you don't sign a guy that like Laken Tomlinson that has played in that scheme forever, or JC Treader who has played in that scheme forever, that you're going to be able to give a 4-year contract to and heavily weigh it in the front. Like, I don't know. It's just negligence, in my opinion. Like, I think I've seen enough. Like, I don't need to make it to training camp to see our offensive line to know that they're fucking barren. They're pretty down in the cupboards when you're fucking worried about Dakota Dozier getting injured. You know, that Dakota, Bain and Garfield, like Bakhtiari going down, you're worried about that. You're not worried about fucking Dakota Dozier going down. Like, you shouldn't be, at least.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm not there yet. Like
I hear you.
I can see you worked yourself into a shoot a little bit. I can tell you're getting worked up about it.
I'm just
But
like, what the fuck? You know what I mean?
well,
Like,
yeah, no, I get it. I get it. I'm not there yet, man. Like I have to see. I'm sick of looking at pieces of fucking paper. Like one of my least favorite, and I heard this in a YouTube video like a little bit ago, but like one of the worst phrases ever is on paper. Like I hate that term because it almost never pans out. That's how you end up with like fucking the Philadelphia Eagles having a super team and looking like dog shit. That's how you end up with like the New York Nets the last few years. You know what I mean? Like teams that look great on paper, but it just doesn't pan out. And then everyone acts surprised when a team that doesn't necessarily look great on paper, but has just this like fucking incredible built like structure from both a head coaching position and like the ideals of like veteran players on the roster just kind of make a run of it. You know what I mean? Like I don't think it's crazy for some guys to pan out on this offensive line, man. I really don't. Like
no,
you can't
I'm
wait too
aligned with
long.
you.
Like you can't wait too long. I get that. Like there has to be like a bit of a ticker in your head, like say, similar to like a quarterback going back to pass with an offensive line that's rough in front of him. You kind of have to have like this mental fucking idea, like, okay, if this isn't working, we need to make this change now. Like, I don't think we're going to get the Matt Nagy situation where we're going to keep pushing guys out there every single week that just are getting fucking mollywopped. Like, I think there's going to be like, if guys aren't producing, you're getting moved, you're getting out of there. And that's why I want to see what guys do in training camp, because if a guy's like Tevin Jenkins isn't responding, nobody cares that he's a second round pick, man. Like that's what I'm seeing already, and that's a lot of like the idea that I think Poles has of trying to clean out the Ryan Pace era from last year is like, it doesn't matter where Ryan Pace drafted you. I need to see what you can do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like I don't have this emotional attachment, because that's one thing that like, I am a Ryan Pace guy. I love that he, caught on in Atlanta. I hope him all the best. But like, that was one thing he did a little bit too much, was he held on to his guys too fucking long before making a decision. And when you have a guy like Matt Nagy, who's basically just standing on the sidelines, farting on his balls, being like, oh, maybe 3 games down the line, we'll make a change, because you're way too focused on the fucking quarterback under center. That's going to probably stick with you a little bit. And I could see that's why you're probably, I could see that being why a lot of people are frustrated with how things are going right now. But like, I need to see it in action before I can like lose it. Like we're just too fresh, man. And
no,
you know what? Honestly, I'm not
you, dude. And I agree with everything that you're saying on a front of like, I mean, what did you just describe? You just described the Ravens. You just described the Patriots. Even though the Patriots haven't been great in the last couple of years, you just described the Steelers. Like, not a ton of flash, but a ton of substance. I'm okay with that, and I'm okay with the slow approach. You just give me one fucking guy. That's all I'm asking for. Like, one fucking guy, dude. Give me one guy that I know if he's healthy, he's not going to be a question mark on our offensive line. I'm not asking for fucking 5 guys. I'm asking for one fucking guy, bro. Like, well, dude, one guy that's going to get a contract that's more than $4 million.
And I'm not asking for fucking Sam Mustipher at right guard either, because I'm not trying to fucking see that.
Well, I mean, hey, man, like, who knows? Maybe fucking Olin Kreutz was right. Maybe he had a reason to choke out Adam Hodge. Like maybe we were wrong. I don't know. Maybe we were wrong, but it does look like he was getting his shit pumped every single time he took the field. So.
No, he was. There's no fucking beating.
I'm okay with sprinkling in overachievers, guys that aren't that talented. We're lunch pail guys. Like, I'm all about it, but you cannot make a team of all lunch pail guys. You need a couple of those fucking guys that carry a little bit of Bane with them.
You're spot on. That's why
I know, dude. I'm sorry, we're like a broken record right now. I fucking know, like, they need to see what they have. I was a huge proponent in that. You have to see what you actually have on the roster, because coaching was such malpractice. Like, you don't really know what you have, right? Especially with guys like Komet and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm okay with you not signing a tight end, but when it comes to the offensive line, that's like one of the most translatable positions, right? If you're in the right system, if you're in the same system. you're probably going to translate and have that same success. We saw it with Trent Williams, right? Like we see it with guys all the time. So I don't know, man. I just give me one fucking guy, one guy before the start of training camp, and I'll be happy. Just one guy that's not a career backup, like just one guy that's not an overachiever, one guy that's actually just a stud.
Yeah, well, and that's kind of the point I was going to make before you kind of kept going. There was like that's why Jason Peters looked like our best offensive lineman last year because he was
he was the only
that guy.
fucking true.
He wasn't a
guy.
fucking overachiever. He was just already that guy. Even fucking a fraction of Jason Peters. You know what I mean? But like, dude, I agree with you on that, man. Like, I want to see the Bears make a move to get a fucking body in camp. Like, I'm hoping that we're looking at guys right now. I'm hoping that we're keeping an eye out for like what Eric Fisher is doing to fucking stay in shape, what JC Treader is doing to stay in shape. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hope that that's what we're fucking doing. Like, I would be honestly shocked at this point if we did not get an offensive lineman before the start of training camp, or at least within the first few days of training camp. Plus, I really think, and this is something that doesn't really get discussed enough. First round of cuts, you know what I mean? Some teams could kind of hit that
is huge,
that point,
right?
where a young guy really is playing that good, and GM kind of decides, well, maybe we can save some money by cutting a guy who's might be better right now, but we need to get this guy more time. You know what I mean? Because that's how we ended up with Josh Sitton quite a few years ago. That was kind of a during camp thing. The Packers thought they saw something a little bit better at right guard than paying what they were paying Josh Sitton, and he kind of fell into our laps. That was like a top 5 guard in the NFL at that point, man. We had quite the combo.
No, that did calm me down a little bit. I appreciate you mentioning that because that's true. Like cuts is huge, and not only that, but even guys that were maybe like 4th, 5th round picks that don't have a guaranteed spot on a team like the Ravens that are stacked up at guard or something like that, and they cut a young guy. Whatever it may be, there is some opportunities to get better in that sense. And you know, maybe I'm just being one of those impatient Bears fans, and maybe it's finally gotten to me. Like I've been chill for fucking 6 months, and now it's finally gotten to me because you know, if you go back and look, everything I've said, it has to be wait and see. You are rebuilding. You're not competing for a Super Bowl. Like I have expressed all of these opinions, but it's just like, when I saw that cap number in 2025, I'm like, you got to be fucking kidding me, bro. Like, this thing is, I get it. You want to rebuild it your way, but you can start that process now. Like, you don't have to wait until next year to start that process.
No, and I agree with you. And I think this year's number is going to change a little bit once we inevitably extend Roquan Smith. I think that'll probably give a little bit more idea of what we can spend for the rest of the season, I guess, because that's going to happen. I feel like
I haven't heard much about that recently either.
Well, I feel like things are just going like way too chummy right now for Roquan coming into a contract year where like he has the chance to be like one of the highest paid linebackers in football. If not, he's going to be the highest paid linebacker in football for at least like a year. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like things are just way too good. Like, he's taken to the system. Like, he has not avoided like the Chicago Bears. Like, he's not avoided House Hall at all. So that makes me think that they have to be pretty close in negotiations, and maybe they're just not trying to leak it because they're doing it in good faith. At least that's, like I said, there's a lot of injunctions.
Speaking of
a lot of me fucking being hyped up for shit, but like, I hate this time of the fucking season because we just don't get answers for too long.
Yeah, but to be honest, speaking of doing deals on good faith, man, I'm actually worried about Lamar Jackson, because he's like doesn't have an agent, and going into the last year of his contract as a quarterback, as a quarterback that runs the ball a lot and just came off an injury, like, and he's like, dude, don't get me wrong, what he's doing is like, I'm sure he is so beloved by fucking Ravens fans. You know what I mean? Because if I had a player like that on my team, I would be very proud of him, but or very just happy to have him be selfless and not be worried about the business side of things, and like have that faith it's going to work out. But man, like, this guy could be passing up a really, really big fucking payday if he gets hurt and the Ravens decide they don't want him anymore. You know, so if I'm him, like I'd be pushing for that security.
Well, especially with how much he does around the football, man. That's really the worrisome part. Because I mean, if you know how to use Lamar Jackson, he can certainly be a fucking weapon. And like, I think the one team that if worst case scenario and it doesn't work out with the Ravens, I think a team that would probably jump at him because I don't believe in their current quarterback would be like fucking Miami. Because I think fucking McDonald would fucking jump at being able to work with a guy like fucking Lamar Jackson, using him kind of in that
McDonald?
run heavy. Kind of, that's his name, right?
McDaniel. McDaniel had a farm.
Whatever. Fucking
Jag
whatever.
off.
I try not to think of the Dolphins because I think they're going to be fucking hot garbage, but I don't know. Like, I could see them wanting to fucking get a really mobile quarterback because Tua's just fucking not. He's a goddamn statue in the pocket. But
Yeah, no, this is not a Tua podcast because I've gotten into many arguments with people about how I don't think Tua is a very good quarterback.
oh yeah, dude, I've had Miami fans in my fucking DMs before. They're a real sick fucking bunch. But to kind of like cover like a lot of what you said, like I don't want to sit here and act like everything I said on this pod's going to be fucking correct. That like everything I say about Ryan Poles is going to be the way he's going to do it, or like the offensive line's going to pound. Like, dude, I could be so fucking wrong. I just like I fucking hate this time of the offseason so much.
No,
Like,
so do
I
I.
just don't get the answers I'm looking for. Like I like looking at what the team is doing and what certain players are doing, and then I can kind of base my opinions off of that. And with so many fucking unknowns going into training camp, like especially with a first year regimen, like I just don't have answers. So I can only like go off of like gut and like very small bits of what they say in fucking press conferences. And I hate it. I hate it. It's my least favorite part.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. I mean, that pretty much does it, doesn't it?
Yeah. I think we covered it for a while. Honestly, shit, dude. Lucas says it's a pretty good pod.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I will say though, like, fuck, man, just get one guy. Like, if I could complete this whole day, or if I could give you one theme of this podcast, it's just get one fucking guy, dude.
If I could pick one dude, give me JC Treader and
Oh,
move
all day, yeah.
Patrick
But
to
I don't
right
even
guard.
know if that's in the realm of possibility at this point. Ogunjobi just got signed by the Steelers. Did we talk about that, or was that just pre-show?
No, we didn't end up talking about that, but yeah, I did see that on a 1-year deal too. So that's going to be another prove it deal for him. That kind of
Hey, for
tells
every
me
team other than the Ravens in the AFC North.
that they really fucking teams are really scared to give him a long-term deal after that fell through with us, so that he's going to have another prove it deal.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
no, I think
people were trying to say the Bears fucked him. Like, I get why a Bengals fan would feel that way, but it's the NFL's issue, man. They should have these physicals done before deals are signed. That's just my personal opinion.
dude,
It shouldn't get to the point where you give someone a guaranteed contract and they come in for a physical. Like, it shouldn't be announced until the physical's done. That's just my opinion.
well, I don't think the Bears screwed him at all. Like, it's one thing if like Zach Miller gets injured after playing fucking some great years for you and you keep him on the payroll, just to be nice considering how bad that injury was. But it's like we didn't hold any loyalty to Larry Ogunjobi. He signed a contract
I'm sure his
in
agents
faith that
and
he was going to pass
doctors.
a physical and he didn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's just fucking business, dude. If your favorite team made decisions like that, you'd be burned. Like your IR would look terrible. Like, I'm sorry, man. You can't just do shit in good faith all the time in the NFL, man. It's a business. And that's why when people defend players that kind of force their way out, they say the same thing. You got to be consistent on the other side of the coin, man. It's a business.
I do. You know what, though, man? I do understand like before, this Lamar Jackson thing is a perfect example. I do understand the business aspect of players now. You know what I mean? Like, why? Dude, if my job, if I just had a ridiculous quarter and I was going to renegotiate my salary with them, like, you better believe I would be trying to get the most I could fucking possibly get before there's possibly a recession or something like that and my numbers go down. Like, yes, I'm trying to get the most I can get. So I understand it. I do think it's kind of bullshit when you're on like your second year and you're already trying to push. But if you're entering that, hey, I have one more year left in my contract. Yeah, I can understand why. Like, I can understand the Debo Samuels, especially with how often he gets utilized and how they're using him out of the backfield. He's at a way higher risk for injury. Before you'd be like, just play, dude. It's like you're getting paid millions of dollars, but as you get older, you fucking realize how bills pile up. You're like, yep, get all the fucking money you can, homie. Get everything you can.
Yeah, because I mean, you only get like fucking, if you're lucky, you'll get like 10 years to make the absolute most money you can. And then it's going to really cut off after that.
That also applies for the non-superstar players, right? Like, if you're coming off your rookie contract or you're in a Larry Ogunjobi situation, like something like that, you were on a prove-it deal, I understand that. But if you're like a fucking superstar like Aaron Rodgers, and you're like, hey, I'm going to just fucking take everything I can from you, and you're on your 13th contract extension, like then that's when I'm like, you're a fucking scumbag because you're okay. You know what I mean? Versus like million. I mean, you've seen the the 30 for 30 broke, like that money goes fucking quick. There's a lot of taxes involved. Like you're living a certain lifestyle. You have a house that, and then you're a house with taxes that are like fucking, who knows, 50 grand a year. And then the market crashes and you fucking don't have a job anymore. And it's like everything you had is gone. But when you're in that upper tier of like, you've been paid 7 times, like, why are you going to rob the team that's paid you so many times? I guess just a long-winded way of saying Aaron Rodgers is a scumbag.
Well, dude, and like so we don't go too far off on this. I mean, kind of want to wrap it up, but with Rodgers and guys like that, what irritates me is like they'll sit there and talk about how they want to win Super Bowls and they want to do this and that, and then they will fucking demand every last cent that they can get. And it's like, listen, people can hate it all they fucking want, man. Tom Brady means it when he says it.
Only one that's ever put their money where their mouth is. Tom Brady.
And guess what? Tom Brady's going to be marketable like for the rest of his life.
To be honest, dude, when we do the Luke and Duke draft, I guarantee you I end up getting Mike Evans, because Mike Evans is one of those guys that has always done the fucking right thing and gotten guys like in his position group paid or whatever. Always produced since the second he came in. And for some reason, he's one of those guys that just people don't give the respect to, man. Like he's by far the best red zone threat since he's been drafted. There's no one. I don't even know if the fade ball is used that often anymore. I feel like the only time I see it ran is to Mike fucking Evans. Like, maybe sometimes Mike Williams or Keenan Allen, but like the fade used to be like the number one pass play to run. In the early 2000s to like 2010, and then it moved over to RPO, and like the Devontae Adams gets 13 touchdowns off of a fucking extended running play. No one throws that fade ball anymore, but Mike Evans gets like 10 touchdowns a year coming out of it.
Dude, Mike Evans won Johnny Manziel a fucking Heisman Trophy and got him drafted in the first round. Like there's nothing Mike Evans can't do. But on that point, I think we're going to wrap her up, because me and Lucas are really, really diving off the beaten path if we're talking about Mike Evans and how much of a jag-off Aaron Rodgers is. But thank you for listening this far. If you have, I mean, me and Lucas are probably going to try to start going a little bit more often as we're getting a little bit close to the season. We have some interesting concepts coming up for you. We're going to try to get some preseason games as well this year, potentially get some football games. We'll have a good tailgate or something like that. Maybe we'll let you sleep at Lucas's house.
Possible.
It's definitely possible. It's not probable.
Bring an inflatable pool toy and we'll talk.
Yeah, hey, buy us thin crust and you have us in the palm of your fucking hands.
It's possible, definitely. It's a lot higher probability then.
But anyway, this has been Barely There. This is Duke Coughlin. You can follow me at that pod guy Duke. As always, I'm joined with the jag-off on the right or left, depending on what your vision looks like, at Lucas Perfetti 46, Lucas Perfetti. That's all I got. Follow us on Twitter, rate us, listen to us on where you like us.
Subscribe to YouTube.
Yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. If you ever want to be included in these comment sections, man, our boy Edward Sheeran was right here in these comment sections like he is every fucking episode, man. And if you want us to name drop you, if you want us to answer your question, just drop onto the YouTube channel. You can look us up on YouTube, Barely There Podcast. You'll find us. I guarantee it.
Guaranteed.
But, what's that?
Guaranteed, I said.
Guaranteed. But anyway, that's all I got. Bear down. We will see you soon.
Bear down.